Hello everyone. Earlier modules on visual narrative advertisements, we talked about the Indianness and ad campaigns, how it has been placed in the consumer market and how it has been advertised in order to reach the populace or the mass, because it is all about mass consumption ultimately, the falling into popular culture realm. And therefore, it is also important to note that how political or politics influence is of brands work. So political influence of brands in a way can situate us in places where we can understand how important it is to understand these brands and how it is promoting certain ideologies. Now there was an ad of Tanishq which was it got a lot of backlash for the right wing thought that it is promoting some sort of love jihad, because in that ad it shows that the lady is having a rasam or a ritual around when you are about to give birth, and in the Indian context it is called god bharai. And this lady is Hindu and she's dressed in a sari, and the mother-in-law is shown to be wearing a salwar dupatta on her head, signifying or symbolizing as a Muslim lady. Now the right wing people, you know came up with this idea that it is promoting love jihad, and it got a lot of backlash, and in the end ultimately it had to drop. And this ad, the name of this ad was Ektavam, which means unity, and it was a jewelry line that Tanish was bringing in. Now, since it was, as other people perceived, was about interfaith marriage, but many people had a problem with interfaith marriage as they thought that it is promoting love jihad. Now, Tharoor made a statement, or rather he tweeted, and he said that, you know, um, if you are protesting for this ad as it symbolizes what you call as love jihad, or the symbol of how it has been put, he says that you should then call against or protest against the longest serving symbol of unity, which is India, because India in a way has is an assemblage of Muslim population and Indian population. Even if we go back to the older yester years, we see that the Mughals have ruled India for quite some time, and they were the ones who propagated what was called as diversity or unity in diversity in a way. Akbar married Jodha, who was a Hindu queen. So we see how Tharoor is trying to situate this. Now these ads in a way bring in to the idea that these political influences of brand, in a way, what does it promote, especially this particular ad of Tanishq. And then the ad maker made a statement regarding this backlash, that the idea of how a mother-in-law treats a woman, a daughter-in-law, she has seen it in the series or the serials of yesteryears, and you see a mother-in-law not treating a lady, a woman, or the daughter-in-law really well. Okay, so this inception, this idea came from there, when she wanted to show that two women can be in the same room and not uh, act like fanatics, and also can be there for each other. That is the most important and beautiful thing that she says she wanted to portray. Now moving on to what these advertisements, or the political influences surround itself when we are building in the consumer. Now very important person is Aravinda Rajagopal, who has talked a lot about building up these ideas from political influences of brand, how brands get politically influenced, or they willingly do, or they think that in a way it is benefiting them, so they don't think about the larger uh, uh, idea of immoralities, but they kind of anyways are immoral, or they, as they call that themselves as amoral. Now In three of his works, he has discussed extensively at length about this idea. But we'll just try to boil it down to points so that it becomes easy to move ahead with this particular topic. Now, thinking through emerging markets, brand logics and cultural forms of political society in India, that came in 2001. And then there is advertising in India, genealogy of consumer subjects, came in 2011. And last is advertising politics and sentimental education of the Indian consumer. So, in a way, he is trying to bring in the sentimentality of the Indian consumer, whether they are, trying to influence through politics, through sentimental education, or how in a way after a certain point it becomes so normalized that people accept it without questioning, as if it is part of and parcel of everyday life. So, this is how brands uh, instill some sort of political influence through their brands, but the consumer is unable to guess or is unable to identify that. Now, when he's saying thinking through markets, he says that there is an intersection of politics and marketing in contemporary India, okay, and he also talks about how market logic shapes political narrative through revolution and communication. So, revolution and communication, according to him, is very important, and everything is being done through communication, either through visual communication or through dialogues, or in a way an ad comes up, right. So, this is all in the realm of, or through the tool called communication. That is what his emphasis is on. And he also emphasizes on the fusion of cultural economy and politics, facilitated by uh, the visual regime, or the what he calls as electronic media. So, electronic media is in a way is controlled, okay, by certain factors, and therefore it is important to note that what the visual regime or the electronic media is wanting for you to see, okay, conscious choice that they are making. And it also highlights the problems of such convergence. So, when all these things come together, like cultural economy and politics, when they are coming together, it is important to highlight the convergence of the two. How markets and political influence, influences each other, with a particular emphasis on the role of branding and symbolism. Now, how these brandings and symbolism works. Now, the example that we just discussed of Tanish is quite suited for this, where they are drawing symbolisms from. It is not mentioned, or there is no other, ways in which the symbolism is used other than what we call as dress, or the kind of garb that these two women are wearing in that particular. From there, people drew that this daughter-in-law is a Hindu and she's married to a Muslim, because the mother-in-law is dressed in such way. And then the example is appropriation of Hindu symbolism in marketing strategy. So, Aravinda Rajagopal says, he quotes, Hindu nationalism is both the globalizing face of Indian politics and the bearer of a violent and brutal form of religious chauvinism within the confines of the nation state, unquote. So, this is what Rajagopal believes in, that how Hindu nationalism is trying to, it is in a way globalizing face of India, how the Indianness is equated with Hindu nationalism, though it is more of a religious trajectory, but it is associating it, it is clinging it with the mainstream politics of India. And it comes with the baggages that he mentioned. The cultural identity has become very salient feature of consumer behavior, or of the consumerism at large. In mid 1980s, he says, political development reshaped the visual shape uh, towards indigenous traditions. So, he comes back to the earlier period, and he is trying to locate where advertisements actually came from, and then he believes that it is basically from indigenous traditions, that they are trying to locate it within the brands. And he says that especially Hindu Brahmanical Hindu culture markets themselves have come to regard the use of the Hindu imagery as more acceptable. So this is what I was talking about. If if the advertising market, or if the advertising world is promoting symbolisms, if is promoting imagery every day, which is adhering to one religion or one ideology, it gets instilled and people think that this is normal. So this is what he further discusses. And he also mentions that broadcasting of commercially sponsored Hindu epics serialized on state owned national TV uh, also talks about mass participation. So he's basically talking about Ramayana and Mahabharat. They were commercially sponsored by individual bodies or production houses, but it was running in national television. So in a way, it is national television is accepting that the trajectory from where it is coming from, and people who are sponsoring also in a way want the mass, as he mentioned, mass participants to get accustomed with it. One particular ad he mentions in the books that he has discussed and very importantly placed is, he adds that in a wheel ad. So there is a wheel ad, and in this wheel ad we see a lot of lemons dropping, and there's a wheel which is spinning very fast, okay, and this spins faster, functioning as religious fetishes that signified purity and strength. So again, situating it in religion, this wheel ad, it might not be very evident for normal people or the mass who are consuming this brand, but the meanings is very out loud clear. The purity and cleanliness is associated, and it is becoming, it is like a fetish, religious fetish, okay, the situating oneself as pure and clean and using this product, and that is the way you promote. Now, as he has given quite a distinct example, or what we can call as situating the political influences of brand through these works that he has written, and he has also, through the genealogy of the consumer subject, he has mentioned about situating it in the older times, how the thing that is called indigenous, that was basically mostly associated with Swadeshi, how it changed. Okay, now Swadeshi is attached to culture more of, and again culture situating it in religion. And with that, we move to what is called the subjectivity of the consumer in a political state. Now, another person, and he's a philosopher, he says that Aravind established that the politics of economy and economy of politics are intertwined and interchangeable. So whether you use politics of economy or economy of politics, it doesn't matter, they both are intertwined and also interchangeable. And the economy works through rhetorics of images and vice versa. Okay, so now what is this where he's trying to establish political subjectivity? Now we discussed earlier in the earlier lecture about political subjectivity, when people can have what you call as uh, objective views about something, or polarized view in a way, right? So what is your ideology? Depending on that, you have a certain kind of political subjectivity, and this political subjectivity of the consumer gives birth to a new kind of advertisement or new kinds of advertisements. They have to rely on the political sentiment of the day to day to understand the market. Now for example, uh, if they come up with similar kind of ad, especially in the times that we are in, like the Tanishq ad, okay, the political sentiment should be aligning with the market, okay, and who is the market? The market is basically the people. So is the political sentiment, if they come up with a similar ad where they were talking about interstate marriage, will it still align with this No, of course not, right? The kind of world we are living in, the kind of times that we are in currently. So that is why it is important to understand what this subjectivity or political subjectivity means. So it says these are the ways in which ads reflect or endorse or oppose political ideologies or values, etc. It could be anything amongst that I just mentioned. And adding on to it, one more example, we have the Gillette's ad, and this Gillette ad's slogan or jingle was "The best men can be." Addressing toxic masculinity is polarized. It polarizes the audience on the idea of toxic masculinity. How political subjectivity can polarize the decision between some people saying that it's a good ad, it's promoting, what the best men can be, okay, and on the same time people think that it's promoting toxicity. So it depends on what polarization views you have, if you are on the left or in the right. Depending on that, the political subjectivity shifts or changes. Now, another very important significant shift in government exhibits as it exhibits shift in advertisement. So, how the government changes, similarly the endorsement of the ideologies also change. That is what it is talking about, the political influences. Now, if the government is left inclined, we see the evidence also in the advertisements which will show some sort of left inclination. Whether if it is a right inclined government, we see that the ads presented are more right inclined, right. So that is what it is talking about. Now the given political system espouses a particular kind of ethics of morality, and it says again state capital, market capital or socialist, etc., as opposed to market capital which is amoral. So uh, the what is called as opposed to markets seems to be amoral in nature, and it is also undefined in terms of larger project they lend themselves. So if you are working on a larger project, it's not just one product that you are working on. If you're working on a line of projects on the from the same company, it tends to lend themselves there wholly and solely. And then we have the uh, political field which kind of tends to pose restrictions on the kinds of questions that might result from the market flow. So what these the government does is that they kind of restricts or in a way censor, okay, so that the question directly comes does not come to them, so that might result from market flow. So whatever questions they kind of think that it might erupt after it goes out in the market, they try to risk management it even before that. So this is under the undertaking of the government. When one government is there, it takes care of it in a different way, or it formulates itself, places itself in a different way as compared to the other. Now the questions of private and individual interest need to be couched in terms of or give way to question of collective interest. You cannot say that it is for the interest of the individual, it should show that it is for the collective interest, okay. The if it is individual, it should be couched, it should not give way to this kind of individual interest, it should be collective in nature. And the issues of language changes also differ political regime, so does the rhetoric of enunciation. Now if you remember, we discussed in the first lecture of this, there was Hindustani and Bharatiya. Now going by the discourse, this word is associated more with Urdu, but on the contrary, it was largely used by people in India, Punjab, Sindh, etc. And then what we call as Bharatiya, it is more like a Hindi term, or more like a Sanskrit term coming from there, Bharat, right? The nation state name Bharat. So you see the more inclination. So as the regime changes, we see the usage of the kind of language associated also changes. Now there were many renowned poets, many renowned lyricists who came from the UP belt, okay, and they wrote in this what we call as Urdu language, and it was liked by everyone. So now, is there a possibility if that can happen, is the question, the larger question. Same goes with whether you know in when you are using the name of the country, whether it should be India, or it should be Hindustan, or it should be Bharat, and that is the a discourse that has been going around. So it all depends on the issue of language changes with different political regimes. So does the rhetoric of enunciation. Now what is this rhetoric of enunciation? Is the speaker's position, who the speaker is and where that speaker has been positioned, the context in which that speaker is speaking, and who is the audience, what is the medium being used. So everything comes under the aspect of rhetoric of enunciation. A person who has to speak, who has to produce, if it is the advertising company for that matter, the discourse that they are bringing through the advertisements depend on what situation they are, what context they are speaking in, and henceforth, right. So let's see an example to further understand the political influence. Now there is a soap called Ganga soap, uh, not very famous in the entire part of India, but significant example. So its religious imagery of Ganga is shown in the ad. A woman is shown in popular markers of Bharatiya Nari. Now woman in the particular or popular markers, maybe she is wearing a sari, okay, is the one popular marker. Then she is shown pouring water onto the child's head with traditional brass lota. Again, the next popular marker of a Bharatiya Nari, that she will be married and with a kid, okay, that is again a significant marker. And third, we see use of traditional items, a lota or a mug, brass. Usually it was more used in yester eras, and again very associated with being very traditional, used also in other rituals of the day. The ad ends establishing a woman as his pious mother, okay. Auspiciousness, purity and bond between mother and son are together sealed with the chaste kiss and signaled by Ganga soap. So basically this ad is about a soap where the mother is bathing the kid using all the signifiers or symbols or imageries of what you called as Bharatiya or traditional in nature, and this is how they are promoting the brand, okay. Ganga is associated with a religion, the holy river where Hindus pray to, and therefore we see how it is getting situated in the discourse of what we call as political influence of brands or advertisements. The sale of Ganga water is an old practice, okay, one which Ganga soap repeated. So a small percentage of the river water was claimed to be included in the soap's preparation. So what they did in order to promote the brand even further as a very religious, sacred, okay, they used or they said that a small percentage of the water has been used in making, they claimed has been used to make this soap or the soap preparation, and posters of the soap said Ganga se snan kar le, bathe in the Ganga, again signifying that if you bathe in the Ganga, you are no longer a sinner, you have washed off all your sin. That is what Ganga river as a as a goddess signifies. So if you're washing yourself with the soap or you're washing your baby, or with the soap, it is signifying about the maybe the past sins which uh, is getting washed. And similarly, if an older person is washing themselves with this soap, is in a way getting uh, rid of the sins that they have accumulated. Now, public use of Hindu themes, there are three events basically where they locate, and it is a little before the 1990s, where the Hindu nationalism started growing with the events in and around the Babri Masjid and Ayodhya. So we see that the dismantling of uh, license Raj happening at this time, and because of which the shift away from the welfare state approach was in rightward direction, with a more business friendly regime held as the answer to development difficulties. So this phase of where basically the 60s and the 70s was a not a good phase for India. In the 60s also India was struggling with the rationing of food and everything, and in the 70s we had the war and the emergency. So again India was in that struggling era. So we see that there was a shift from the welfare state approach towards the rightward direction, right? And with a more business friendly regime coming up, because they are kind of dismantling this, and many people would now be able to get the license. Okay. Now, the institution of national television begins, or the beginning can be traced in 1982, created a single visual regime right across the country for the first time, presenting a political opportunity waiting to be utilized. Again, very important how the broadcasting, or the television is kind of creating a single visual regime. So since there is only Doordarshan before coming of Star Network, whatever the the channel Doordarshan is giving to the audience, it is in a one way regime, visual regime it is happening. Okay, it's not like a correspondence. They are not doing a market study as to whether it is doing good, because they know there are no market competitions, so they don't need to do it. And therefore in a way it is a very single visual regime that Ashish Rajadaksa talks as Rajagopala, sorry, talks about. And then finally, although the Congress party sought to seize this advantage, so since it was a single visual regime also controlled by the what you call as the government, and Congress party was ruling at that time, we can see that they tried to play the Hindu card. Okay, it was not that they did not, but they tried. It was later the BJP that succeeded in changing the terms of the political debate, ushering in an era of authoritarian populism more suited to have brave new world of economic liberalization. So Rajagopal is of the view, or as he explains, that there was a time when uh, there was the right direction, right, was getting instilled through Doordarshan, and Congress party also tried to use it to their advantage, but they were not actually fully able to uh, capitalize or materialize it, but instead it was the BJP who had succeeded in doing so. And therefore these three events kind of marked how the tradition and the other markers were seen in advertisements in a way. What would one could say or call that these advertisement companies do, like they go with the regime, right? So whatever the regime is, they have to in a way make money, contribute to the economy in a way. So they do not function in the way how politics functions, but their politics is different. But again, having said that, it's still instilled with the kind of the politics that is, or ideology that is going around. Advertisement as a pedagogy of politics. Now, Rajagopala says that advertising is a language that extols the virtue of buying specific goods, at the same time educates customer into particular technologies of the self, specific modes of comportment, and but we see that this does not come from vacuum. Okay, there is some cues or trends in the political sphere which acts as a prop, which adds to it. So when he says that it educates consumers into particular technologies of the self, he means that these ads does not tell us, about the product, but it tells us how it should enhance our personalities in a way, or our life in a way. Okay, and when it tells that it will enhance our life and uh, uh, personality, this activity does not happen in vacuum. It is carried with some some markers, okay, or some uh, political sphere is attached to it. For example, again taking the ad of Fair and Lovely, what Fair and Lovely promoted was fairness. And fairness, if one has read the script, not scriptures, but the the traditional value systems, it talks about that Indian women should be fair, right? And fairness is again equated with class and caste. So that Brahmanical notion of being fair is also equivalent to a kind of class. And this particular ad of Fair and Lovely, that you can change your color, okay, it will make you more beautiful, that idea comes around from these class and caste markers. So it is telling you that it will enhance your personality and persona, but in what ways, right? Why do you want to become beautiful or presentable to someone else? What about you? Is it doing something to you? So they came again with a narrative that okay, it might influence one's personality, okay, or confidence, it boosts. But these things also are somewhat related to the political sphere. It does not come on its own. It doesn't come from vacuum. That is what Rajagopala argues. And then the greater circulation of Hindu imagery is understood or to provide its own sanction. Meanwhile, consumers learn to objectify these images and potentially to form new or more individualized modes of relating to them. Now, through these imageries that are circulating, it is understood that it is kind of providing its own sanction. And meanwhile we see that the consumer learns to objectify, taking these images into consideration, potentially to form new more individualized modes that relating to them. They are bringing in more meanings from the objectification which was not there earlier. They are making creating meanings in a way, or imageries from them, making it gain legitimacy. So if you are doing that, you are making it more legitimate, and also how people interact with it, and kind of interact and interpret at the same time. So you are looking at an image, you bring out your own meaning out of it, and then how you are interacting with it and how you interpret that symbolism is what it is, what Rajagopala is talking about. So these are taken as tools of politics in advertisement. Now they show you an advertisement and you understand, or you make your own meaning out of it. That becomes kind of a pedagogy or a tool of politics, how you situate things, imageries, etc. These Indian advertising and its vocabulary of desire. And so what is this libidinal economy? So this television promotes a libidinal economy. This libidinal economy is like when you watch an ad, it stimulates your emotional and psychological desires that drive consumer behavior. So it could be attached to something called passive consumption, right? We read about passive consumption. And this passive consumption is very interesting in this what we are discussing as libidinal economy, they might stimulate an emotion which does not need to be stimulated, and then it will result in you going and buying it, right, resulting in going and buying or purchasing something. So that is what it is playing with, and it helps secure and produce the physical economy and what is interwoven with it. So once it is in your psychology, in your emotions, you go and physically purchase that object, and therefore it leads to what is called as libidinal economy. These market enables the circulation of value with information broadcast through media, and this is how what is happening is through broadcast and media. This is the ones which are kind of acting as a trajectory or a way, and thus media are an indispensable technology. So you cannot dispense this media because it is their role in what is happening, how they are supplying to the market and the advancement of market relations, etc., generating social links necessary to these relations. And with this, the last point in vocabularies of desire, he says that they must at the same time be taught to conceive for the larger effective relations within which these practices are enacted. Now what he means is that uh, they are trying to shape a kind of a new habit, like a kind of inculcating a new habit within the new customers, new consumers, but they want them to have some kind of longing or evoking consumer longing in a specific appealing language that they are trying to do. They are kind of trying to foster consumerism, and that too through sustaining economy. It should not be like use and throw, or just one use thing. It should be they are trying to create a customer base using their emotions and psychology. One example is that of what we call as eco-friendly products. So what happens with eco-friendly products? They tell you that it is good for the environment. It is also good for you. But after beyond that, when they are trying to, they have already got through your emotions and your psychology, they create a community out of it, and they say that you should always be attached to this community, which is also promoting eco-friendly products or something to do with the environment. And last topic under this is semiotics of sartorial choices. Now what is this sartorial choices? Sartorial, as I mentioned earlier, it comes from sartor, which is cloth. So why is it so important? Now looking into why it is so important, homespun khadi was popularized by Gandhi as anti-imperial protest. We know about the Swadeshi movement, right? And then we see after British left, Nehru popularized what now is known as the Nehru jacket. Now the coming of this kicking out of what we call as khadi is seen as, after becoming prime minister, Mr. Nehru discarded the common man's dhoti kurta and took the achkan, which is the sherwani. Now again, if we talk about the politics of branding, this achkani or sherwani is more drawn towards the Islamicate culture or Islamicate clothing, but Nehru integrating it in the popular imagination of the people is also in a way promoting secularism. So semiotics of the sartorial choices also work in how you go and purchase your dress or cloth. Who came up with the handloom house, where they are again trying to rebuild the narrative of the Indian fabric and traditional Indian arts craft after independence. And he also in a way, because he was friends with Indira Gandhi, he was able to exclusively make her wear these saris and promote at the same time. And people inspired the creation of India's first designer house called the handloom house.